Richard, do you agree?
Well, first I just want to say that if you read Rick's pieces over the years, he's probably one of the only journalists out there who gives a lot of serious attention to what amendments would you make to change the American Constitution. Well, what would you actually do to the Senate, and how many terms should the president have, or how long should they be, and these kinds of we think of as historic questions or maybe textbook questions. He actually does get down in the nitty-gritty of it. So he's a good person to be responding to what you said. And certainly you're right. They would be looking. They would want to know what are the other models out there. What are the other countries doing? Is there anything that's useful? What can we learn? And they would be looking at the European democracies. They'd also be looking at democracies or republics that had failed, because they were also very interested in the negative examples. So, and God knows the world is full of a lot of those. I think one thing we should ignore that would startle many of them, and probably affirmatively please only a few of them, is the fact that we have an African-American president. I think Alexander Hamilton might be able to take that in stride. Well, the reason I say that, he grew up in the West Indies. He was an anti-slavery person in his lifetime. It's not clear whether he owned slaves or not. His biographers kicked that back and forth. But he did help found a thing in New York called the New York Manumission Society, which actually began the process of turning New York State from a slave state, which had a lot of slaves in it, to a free one by 1827, long after he was dead. And he did write, there's a letter he writes, the question is, should there be black soldiers in the Revolutionary War? And this was a scheme that a friend of his, the young colonel named John Lawrence, came up with. And he endorsed it, and he tried to get George Washington to sign off on it. And he writes a letter to John Jay saying, and he first writes, their natural faculties are perhaps as good as ours. And he crosses out perhaps, and he writes in probably. So his second thought was, no, it's not perhaps, it's probably. So I think he would be the least distressed, maybe not distressed at all, but a lot of them would be quite shocked and appalled.
They would be shocked, but I think that on the third or fourth thought, a lot of them would be very pleasantly surprised. As long as you didn't tell them how we got from point A to this point B. the part about fighting the bloodiest war in history up until then, because the instrument that they designed was unable to solve this problem, would shame them. It would shame them. A lot of them, a lot of them ended up not liking the Constitution much. But I don't think any of them anticipated that it would lead to that kind of a catastrophe.
Right. Some of them thought it would fail, but they didn't imagine that the failure would be so bloodthirsty.
Yeah.
Bringing us up to today, there are many people in this audience, and I guess I share their view, that believe that we are in a period of sort of a downward spiral into instability in our politics today compared to what it may have been in the last 3 or 4 decades. Is there a prescription to get an up spiral and get out of this mess?
Prescription?
Cure? Any sort of advice as to how to cure the instability that seems to have taken hold, not just in politics, but in our news media, in political dialogue today?
Well, you can think of some small steps. I mean, it's kind of hard. A lot of it is kind of based in the market and in market forces that are very difficult to wave away. I mean, Fox News, for example, I deplore it. I deplore the tone of it. I deplore the fact that fantasists and demagogues like Glenn Beck are given this chance to spread poison every single night. I deplore all that, but it's a viable business plan. It's a niche. It's a very profitable operation.
It's making money the New York Times may not be.
It's making a lot of money. It's making more money than CNN. It's making more money certainly than MSNBC. Both of those, I guess, are making money, but not this kind of money. I don't see I can't think of anything that could be done about that. But if you could get the big bucks out of politics, if you could make it possible not to have every senator having to spend most of his or her time raising millions in these $2,000 increments on the phone, hour after hour, to the rich people, going to fundraisers, even leaving aside the kind of influence that buys. That's bad. That's soul killing. That takes up. They don't have time for civility. They don't have time to get to know each other. That is, everyone who comments on this, Evan Vai said this in one of his exit interviews, when his father was a senator, the senator stayed in town sometimes for the weekend. He didn't go back to the district every 5 minutes. They got to know each other, and that meant that there were times when they could lubricate this crack creeping machine, this rusty machine, to get something done. So real campaign finance reform, I don't know if it's possible, but that would certainly have a positive effect.
Richard, where do you see the downward spiral ending or turning around?
Look, a lot of it, maybe most of it, has to do with the media and the proliferation of media that we've had. Now, when the Founding Fathers lived, there was one form of modern media already existing, that was newspapers. And America actually had more newspapers per capita than any other country in the world. We actually had more newspapers total than France had. France was a much more populous country. But look, just in my own lifetime, I mean, I grew up with 3 networks and public television, and there was no talk radio. There was Paul Harvard, he was it, the closest thing. And it's just, what's happened to television, what's happening on the internet. 5 years from now, if we come back, it will be completely different and even more, I'm sure, ramified and multifarious than it is now. And so all that is out there. People have to be on top of that. People have to spend money on it. And also, this is a big country. If you're running for senator from California, I mean, maybe this is an argument for having like 200 states rather than 50, so senators don't have such huge markets. Or even a little state like New Jersey, you've got to buy ads in New York and Philadelphia. I mean, 2 great big media markets. And so, yes, it does cost a lot of money. And I frankly don't see a way that campaign finance reform can shut that off, because whenever they try, it's like a blob. It's always a blob of mercury, and it comes around the edges and it comes in somewhere else. And you keep erecting these fences, and then and then somebody comes up with political action committees, and then you do something to that, and there are innovations in money raising and spending as well as in the media. So I just see this the media environment is something that we have to live